Happy Happy Monday, everyone. For those I don't know, my name is Cindy Peterson, and I'm so pleased to share Monday with you today. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in reciting the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? To invite Jennifer Hazing up for our invocation.
Still not taller. Always my New Year's resolution. Please join me in prayer if you wish. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many opportunities we are afforded as leaders and members of this community. We thank you for the cultural opportunities that bring enrichment to our lives and set our community apart from all of the others. We thank you for the fellowship we bring today. We thank you for the food we have been blessed to receive. We thank you for the hands that have prepared it. We pray that you will send us out into the world in peace, strength and courage to serve you with gladness and singleness of heart. For these things we pray. Amen.
Seeing that a few of you are still coming in, while you get settled, we will do some welcomes. First of all, I want to thank our greeters for just being the perfect smile that greets us each and every time we come together on Mondays. We have a number of guests today. We do not have time to thank everyone or to welcome every single person individually, but I do want to extend a special thank you and recognition to a group of students that we have with us as guests, hosted by Tony Burke, JAG. If you would give a wave, JAG students over this way. JAG stands, yes, welcome. Yay, we're here. We're glad you're here. JAG stands for Jobs for Americans Graduates. It is a program being offered in all 4 Sioux Falls School District high schools this year for the first time, but it has been part of South Dakota since 2009. In the daily 1-hour class, students work on developing basic competencies that are critical for success both on the job and in everyday life. Students work on personal, life survivor, and workplace skills. They practice career development as well as leadership. From there, they take what is learned in the classroom and apply it to real life experiences. Overall, there have been 600 students served in South Dakota since 2009. The graduation rate for South Dakota students in the JAG program is nearly 100%. Isn't that impressive? And I think kind of a best kept secret in our community. So we're so glad that we could lift that group and the work that you're doing. And we hope that all of you will stay in South Dakota and share those talents. I also want to welcome our junior Rotarians. We have Evelyn Brenner from O'Gorman, and speaking today will be Jack Henricks from Washington. We have a few items of Rotary business. First, I would like to invite Joel Sylvester up to tell you a little bit about something you can expect in February.
Jen, you got the mic perfect for me. That's great. Fantastic. Appreciate it. So welcome. Thank you, President Cindy. Welcome, fellow Rotarians. Couple updates from the membership committee that, as Cindy said, we're going to be really starting to kick off again in February. So as a reminder, we started this year's Rotary year this summer in July at 308 members. We're currently at 312. So thank you for those that have inducted members. Matt Paulson, I don't know if you're here, but thank you specifically for bringing 5 new members into the fold. That, as a reminder, lands us as the 22nd largest Rotarian group in the world. Our goal is to grow by 5% this year, which means we need to get another 14 members. That would put us into the top 20. So we would leapfrog Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Bombay, India, and Tokyo, Japan. I don't know if Sioux Falls and those three cities generally are lumped together very often, but as far as the world of Rotary, let's go for it. As far as that goes, so a couple things that the membership group has been doing is we did an open invitation to Leadership South Dakota. We think that's a group of people that are thought leaders in their community, and we did an open invitation there. So Dan Doyle had assisted with that, so thank you. We're excited about that. Our presentation last week was on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're putting some things in place to hopefully bring in that new group of thought leaders that aren't quite as traditional. And then there will be a membership drive starting in February, and we will waive the new membership dues for the month of February. So the goal is really to get that 14 new members to the table. Cindy's idea, February is the month of love. So our goal is really to show the love to those in the community that haven't had the opportunity to be part of Downtown Rotary yet. So now this is my ask to you. There's a couple things that I'm going to ask for all of you is to think about your circles of leadership, your circle of thought, the organizations that you take part of, and who is not at the table here with us with Downtown Rotary. Who are some of the thought leaders? Who are some of the people that we haven't had the chance to share our message with at this point? So be thinking about that. Again, we're going to kick off in February, so I'm giving you a little bit of a heads up to do some thinking and do some invites. Look at the programs that we have, amazing programs all throughout January, throughout February, throughout March. Then it gets to be basketball time, so we want to get all of these new members in before March. So be thinking about that. And then with the lines of show the love, when we do have our guests here, and as we're thinking through the membership process, let's just really be focused on letting people know what Rotary is, what specifically Downtown Rotary is, and all of the things and the people that we want here helping being thought leaders. I am also going to be reaching out to the former presidents of Downtown Rotary. It is President's Day in February as well, and we'll do a little challenge with them, trying to get them to bring new members in. So Tony, Cindy, Tony, Jason, Joel, Jesse, I'll be knocking on your door to hopefully ask for help. So that's it. I'll be back in February for more. So enjoy the rest of your program.
Joel, thank you so much. I think we should once again show the love to Joel. It is not an easy job to chair membership for a club of this size and keeping those numbers going. So Joel, I know I'm personally very grateful for your energy and your passion. And so thank you so much for what you've been doing. And staying in the spirit of membership, today we get to induct a new member. I'm going to invite Kayla Etram up to introduce our newest member.
Hello, everyone. I am excited to introduce many of you to my friend, Luke Gary. Luke and I met in 2010 when we were both introduced to Rotary as part of the group study exchange trip to Japan. So if you ever want to know about getting a sweet potato from a street cart, singing karaoke the authentic way, or literally being the tallest person in a Tokyo market, he's your guy. So please chat with him. We had an awesome experience in 2010. We spent a month in Japan, and then he joined Rotary South. So we're really just welcoming him back to Rotary. Luke has been a banker in Sioux Falls since 2008 and is currently a vice president and business banker for American Bank and Trust. He's married to Delia Drewley, and they have a daughter, Maeve. Help me welcome Luke to Downtown Rotary.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here. I appreciate the warm welcome from everyone. As Kayla said, I was in Rotary. I know it's a great organization. Life got busy for a while. I've been away. I've served on some other boards, and I have too much free time that I need to dedicate to something else now. So I'm happy to get started and get involved. Thank you again.
I'm going to invite Kayla to return to the stage to introduce our junior Rotarian.
Hi again. I'm excited to introduce you to Jack Heinrichs today. Jack is a senior at Washington High School. He's involved in oral interp and debate, also Boy Scouts, church youth group, and is a cashier at Hy-Vee. He enjoys golfing, model trains, and presidential biographies. I know there's some people, Jack, in this room that would be interested in talking to you about that. His parents are Amy, who's in the back. Hi, Amy, and Jack. And he hopes to major in economics and become an attorney in the future. So please help me welcome Jack Heinrichs from Washington High School.
Thank you for having me. More than any other state, South Dakota has the claim as the birthplace of high school debate. In 1925, a young superintendent of schools named Carl Munt became the first member of the National Forensic League, an organization that is now known as the National Speech and Debate Association. His school in Bryant became the 5th chapter in the NFL, and Munt served as the organization's president from 1933 until 1971. 16 years after that, Watertown debate coach Donis Roberts invented public forum debate, a form of debating used by millions of individuals all over the world. But even with South Dakota's rich history of debating excellence, in recent years, the activity has been greatly weakened. Interp and debate programs have suffered budget cuts from disinterested school administrations. The COVID pandemic drove tournaments online and forced cancellations, slashing enrollment and student interest. And so programs in Clear Lake, Flandreau, Vermilion, Pierre, Groton, Madison, and Elkton have vanished. The disintegration of high school speech and debate in South Dakota is a tremendous shame because debate is unique amongst high school activities in that it teaches research and critical thinking skills. South Dakota political leaders often lament the apathy many young individuals have towards government, but high school debate is the perfect solution to the issue, as it not only teaches the skills needed for competent citizenship in America, but also the respect American government needs to survive. In debate programs, students are taught the science behind argumentation. They're taught how to identify logical fallacies and how to avoid them in their own arguments. They're taught the skill of research, how to identify reliable sources, and conversely, how to identify unreliable or misconstrued sources in their opponent's arguments. These are foundational skills in American political life. As citizens, we are called to disagree with one another, to argue factually and responsibly in order to arrive at logical conclusions. And in such arguments, we must be able to discern between the reliable and the specious, between the sources that are trustworthy and those that are flat out wrong. But the value of debate isn't reserved to the basic skills of argumentation. It teaches respect. The first skill you are taught as a debater is that before you attack any of your opponent's arguments, you must find the logic and emotion that lie at the heart of that argument. Now, we do this because following an argument to its core is the best way to find logical fallacies. But this skill has a second, more important purpose. By always seeking to understand the base of an argument, we are forced to respect that argument. This skill teaches debaters not to demean, but rather to respect and understand their opponents. This skill, respect and argumentation, is almost totally absent in today's political discourse. The current trend of political chaos and demonization has created a generation of Americans disgusted with politics. In order to reestablish a calm, rational, and respectful tone of public debate, we must teach our young individuals entering the public arena how to debate in a considerate manner. And the only strategy we have to teach that skill, to reverse the cheapening of our nation's political debate, is the expert argumentation and respectful communication demanded by high school debate. And even if they don't fit under the common definition of the term, debaters are student competitors. We compete under the SDHSAA. Hundreds of us travel across the state debating 6 or 7 hours every Saturday while practicing most every day after school. Our activity is no less rigorous intellectually than football or basketball are physically. And yet, while high school sports are the constant subject of newsprint and television airtime, debaters and interpreters often toil in obscurity. The simplest and best way to ensure the future of debate is to demand that it is supported in the same fashion as high school sports. By advocating for debate funding at school boards, to school administration, and PTA gatherings, we can prevent the kinds of funding cuts that killed programs across the state. By insisting on equal amounts of recognition from the media, we can demonstrate to high school students that debate and oral interp are just as legitimate extracurricular activities as sports. After all, the South Dakota speech and debate circuit has accomplished some remarkable feats without structural support. 2 years ago, my teammate, Catherine Liu, won second place in Lincoln Douglas debate at the National Speech and Debate Tournament. The next year, another of my teammates, Mara McIntyre, took 7th in the nation in storytelling. If these debaters and interpreters in South Dakota have such accomplishments acting on their own, imagine what we'll be able to do and who we'll be able to teach with your support. Thank you.
Jack, thank you for being a tremendous advocate of your craft. I could tell that this room really appreciated your perspective and the way that you presented. Thank you so very much. We have one more item of Rotary business before we step into our program. I would like to invite our Sioux 52 Chair, Eric Erickson, up to introduce today's mentoring mission moment.
Jack, it took all we could muster to not stand when we applauded you. So I could feel the tension in the room. So thank you. My job today is to introduce to you someone who represents a mentee, since this is National Mentoring Month still, and Sioux 52 Mentoring Month in Sioux Falls. And this being our third of 4 weeks of highlighting mentoring, I want to introduce to you today Mackenzie Ratterman. Mackenzie works for Dorsey and Whitney Trust Company. Mackenzie is enrolled as a mentee in the MB Women's Leadership Program. The MB Women's Leadership Program helps women focus on discovering their power, activating their vision, and connecting with the community while learning from the personal experiences and skills of area leaders. Through the program, each participant creates a personalized action plan that empowers them to meet personal and professional goals. This immersive course welcomes all women seeking development opportunities in their personal and professional lives. Mackenzie is originally from Delmont. She's married, has 2 children. Please welcome Mackenzie Ratterman.
Hi, thank you for having me. Jack, thank you for coming up first. I actually, since I'm here to talk about mentoring and mentorship, I would like to connect with you for 2 reasons. First, my husband is an attorney. Second, we have a model train room built into our basement, and we can't figure out how to turn it on. So, so at some point we should connect, so you can check that out. So my name is Mackenzie. I'm part of the 2021 MB Women's Leadership Cohort. I applied in the spring of 2021. And my mission going into it kind of changed really swiftly because I found out about 2 weeks before I was accepted that I was going to have a baby. So it was something else to add to my plate at that time because I'm also a board member for the Great Plains Zoo, which is now the zoo and aquarium. And I'm always bound to embarrass myself when I'm talking in front of groups of people. So just forgive me for what I'm going to say next. I was talking to my husband about whether or not I should do the program. And he said to me, Mackenzie, what would Cardi B say? And I said, she would say, drop an album, drop a baby, but never drop the ball. So I accepted the program and went through it. The way the program is set up right now, I believe they have 2 cohorts because they have so much interest in the program. And there are a ton of resources that go into it. My class had 28 in the class, and we each have our own individual mentor that we meet with for an entire year after we finish the sessions. The sessions focus on things like negotiations, finding your best skills, valuing diversity in the workplace, and networking. So we did 6 sessions throughout fall and spring. And then at the end of the sessions, we started to meet with our mentors. My meetings with my mentor, like I said, changed a lot because I was pretty steady in my work and not really worried about much other than trying to meet some people in the community because we've only lived here for a few years. But after having a baby and trying to advocate for myself and my family a little bit more, the meaning of that relationship changed quite a bit. I was able to take 16 weeks off of work because I advocated for myself with the help of my mentor. When it came time to negotiate a raise, she helped me word those discussions so that I could get the best for myself and my family. Um, she's been somebody that's just, I've been able to bounce things off of that I wouldn't be comfortable talking to people at work about necessarily. So having a mentor outside of my work setting has been very beneficial for me. The most important part of the program for me has been having somebody that helps me advocate for myself. And it's easier to talk to somebody if you have, or easier to advocate for yourself if you have somebody to bounce those ideas off of first. And that's been all the difference in the world for me. So the point is, for the mentoring part for me, I learned that I didn't have to struggle through something by myself, especially having a baby and trying to figure out what that would look like for my work and personal life. Having that mentor has changed everything and has been very impactful for me. Thank you.
Mackenzie, thank you so much for sharing your story. Let's switch gears to our program. Our program is about our incredibly impressive and nationally recognized South Dakota Symphony Orchestra. Up on stage already with us today is Downtown Rotarian and South Dakota Symphony Orchestra Executive Director Jennifer Teisinger. We have South Dakota Symphony Orchestra Music Director Delta David Gier. We have Downtown Rotarian and South Dakota Symphony Orchestra past board chair Scott Lawrence. And finally, today's moderator is Downtown Rotarian Jack Marsh. One of the sentences used in the intro that you received in your email this morning talked about the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra as being one of the most bold, one of the boldest orchestras in our nation. And I don't know how many of you were at Saturday's program, but if you were there and you listened to that encore of the first component of that evening, you certainly know the boldness and the power of our orchestra. So I'm so grateful to have all of you here today. Jack, I'll turn it over to you.
That was an exclamation point. What an incredible presentation, Jack, as a school Rotarian. If you run for office, I'll be your campaign manager. And as soon as you get out of law school, I'll probably need a new attorney, and you're it. It is an absolute privilege for me to moderate this discussion with my friends and my colleagues as well. My association with the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra goes back 30 years when the Marsh family moved from the Northeast to Sioux Falls. And Ann Grovigal at that time was a reporter for the Argus Leader, and she would actually do reviews of the South Dakota Symphony performances. And I was editor of the Argus at the time, and I read these reviews, and I said, well, I should check out this orchestra. And at that time, Henry Charles Smith was the music director, the conductor, and the orchestra was performing in the old Coliseum, the barn, right? What a wonderful first impression it made for our family coming to Sioux Falls to have this incredible asset, to have for a community of this size to have its own professional symphony orchestra was quite amazing to me. We moved from New York and New Jersey. We weren't able to attend many concerts in the Coliseum because the ceiling fell in. The building was condemned, right? And then the South Dakota Symphony became this nomadic band traveling around town in different venues until the Washington Pavilion opened. So first with Henry Charles Smith, then with Susan Haig, and then with our current maestro, Delta David Gier. 10 years ago, Michelle LaValle, about 10 years ago, Michelle LaValle calls me up and says that I could go out to coffee with her. She had an idea. She said, would I possibly consider coming on to the South Dakota Symphony Board? If you've ever taken a call from Michelle LaValle, you can never say no to Michelle LaValle. So I did, and that began 9 years of serving on the South Dakota Symphony Board. What a great experience that was for me. I'm no longer on the board, served for 9 years, much of that in leadership role on the board with Scott Lawrence, who is the longest serving board chair in the history of the South Dakota Symphony, 11 years of service. When you're on a board like the South Dakota Symphony, you see how the sausage is made, and it is so impressive. The momentum of this organization has to be unprecedented in its 100-year history. And since April 30th of last year, I can't believe the series of events that have occurred to increase that momentum and help take this organization to a whole new level that I think many of us never imagined. We are on the edge of, it's incredible. And I think, so the next half hour, we want to kind of give you some insight into this, this community treasure, a treasure for the entire state. So what's this momentum all about? Well, a lot of orchestras didn't come out of the pandemic very well. We did. We never stopped playing the music. Smaller orchestras, socially distanced on the stage, even socially distanced the audience. South Dakota Public Broadcasting, great partner, started live streaming all the concerts. So if you couldn't attend in person, you could watch on SDPB online. Incredible. And so planning went on for this 100th season, 100 years in this community. And so successfully completed that 100th anniversary year. Maestro Gier received the 2022 Ditson Conductors Award. The orchestra completed its first professional recording, cut its first CD. I guess we still use CDs, but you can purchase online as well, I'm sure. And that recording was tied to the Lakota Music Project. David Gier is music director. He really plans the repertoire for the orchestra, and the 100th season repertoire was pretty important. So David had this idea for the last concert of the season, which was April 30th, correct, Jennifer? He said, well, let's go out and commission a piece that we would have a world premiere at the final concert of the season. So he turned to a highly respected American composer by the name of John Luther Adams. And so John Luther Adams was commissioned for this piece titled An Atlas of Deep Time. And so imagine it's the end of this 100th season, the final celebration, and we're going to debut this. The piece was incredible. And there's a writer for the New Yorker who covers the orchestra industry. His name is Alex Ross. And Alex found out that David and the orchestra had commissioned this piece and said, well, Alex said, I bet the snow has melted out there in South Dakota by April, so I'll come out. So Alex Ross shows up to review this world premiere on April 30th. Alex Ross of the New Yorker. I believe he would be regarded as one of the preeminent music writers in the country, right? Maybe the. So he comes out to review this concert. And then the New Yorker piece comes out, and it's not a review of the concert. It proclaims, here's the title, in the New Yorker magazine edition of May 16th, 2022, How the South Dakota Symphony Became One of America's Boldest Orchestras. Incredible. Well, that brought national prominence to the symphony, right? We were suddenly, we have this validation. We think we have a good thing going here in South Dakota, but it's not very often that somebody flies in from New York and actually for a national audience validates this. Well, that is apparently a few people who were no longer in town also noticed this, and people throughout the industry noticed this piece. And so we're hearing from people all over the country. And one day, David Gier gets a message from Seth Sandlin's office, President Sandlin would like to visit with you. Can you pick up the phone? David.
Well, I was actually in Europe when I got that message, so we had to postpone it a little bit. But when I got back in August, Stephanie and I did have the phone conversation, and she told me that a relative of hers in Chicago, Dean Buntrock, originally from Columbia, South Dakota, had read the article. Dean is one of the founders, CEO of Waste Management, Inc., and a lifelong board member of the Chicago Symphony. And so she said, Dean saw the article in the New Yorker, and he said to me, "What's up with the South Dakota Symphony? Like, they do all of this great work with a $2.3 million budget. What if they had $4 or $5 million?" I said, "Wow, that's music to my ears." So that began a conversation, and Jen and I, started, trying to develop we began a relationship with Dean Buntrock. She's much more into the relationship than I am. You have him on speed dial, I think. So, I mean, I'm going to let her talk more about that. But I mean, the fact is that Dean and his wife, Rosemary, got on their private jet and flew here in September, and we sat down and they learned more about the orchestra. And then he came back a month later with his lawyer and his accountant to talk about giving us money. So, but he has very specific ideas because he's not just interested in giving the orchestra money to do cool things. He wants to see the orchestra solidified and growing because of the vision that he saw in the New Yorker and what he learned when he came here.
$2 million announced last week. $2 million gift, the largest gift in the history of the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra, and maybe there's more to come. And we're going to get into what this means for the orchestra and its programming, as well as its capacity building. All this started because of the validation that the orchestra received because of the Alex Ross coverage in the New Yorker. It's worth reading the lead in his piece in the New Yorker. The South Dakota Symphony Orchestra, the musical pride of Sioux Falls, has an annual budget of $2.3 million, which is microscopic by the standards of America's leading orchestras. Then notes that the maestro of the Chicago Symphony, I think that wouldn't be sufficient even to pay his salary, right? Nevertheless, the South Dakota Symphony is bolder and savvier in its programming than all but a handful of American ensembles. Delta David Gier, the SDSO's music director, recently won the Ditson Conductors Award, which Columbia University gives to notable advocates for American composers. The citation called Gier, quote, "the model of an engaged conductor," end quote. But that's not all. Then the year in review in the New Yorker, also by Alex Ross, the top 10 notable performances of 2022. How many performances do you think that Alex Ross would attend in a year, David?
How many days are there in a year? I mean, no, most of the time he's at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center, but I mean, he probably reviews a couple hundred a year at least, yeah.
So under the headline, notable performances of 2022, year in review, he refers to us as the daring South Dakota Symphony. Ignore sloppy talk of a Big Five or Big Ten. Dozens of orchestras are delivering first-rate performances across the country. For years, I had been reading about the exploits of the South Dakota Symphony, which defies stereotypes of provincial conservatism by playing contemporary music on a routine basis. In the spring, I finally made it to Sioux Falls, where I heard a huge new John Luther Adams piece, An Atlas of Deep Time, and saw a community in love with its orchestra. Scott Lawrence, in addition to his amazing service to this orchestra as a board member and as our chair, is also the preeminent marketer in this state. What does it mean for an organization like this, Scott, to receive this kind of validation from Alex Ross and then the New Yorker?
Well, if you would look at it from the perspective of being not passionate about the symphony, but truly being a marketer, you can't buy that kind of coverage. You cannot put a price on that kind of coverage. And it's remarkable. You make me feel like, I'm tingling here listening to you, Marsh, We sat in that, how many executive meetings and board meetings did we sit through for 9 years? I mean, and it was just such a pleasure, but it's huge. I mean, and then to have him come back and to rank us in one of the top 10 in the world. That wasn't the country, that was the world. I mean, there was the Berlin Symphony and these other things. I mean, it's just a double whammy that has just really started a firestorm for the organization and this pride of South Dakota that we call the Symphony Orchestra, South Dakota Symphony Orchestra.
The organization's been very fortunate for the last 4 years to have Jennifer Teisinger as our executive director. She succeeded another Jennifer Boomgarden, who also did an amazing job for this organization. Jennifer, I think a lot of the people in this audience and perhaps many people in this community associate the South Dakota Symphony only with main stage classical music. As good as that is, and believe me, it is world class, this organization is so much more than the main stage concerts. Give us a sense for how the symphony operates as a nonprofit business, its staffing, its budget. Give us some highlights just so we have an idea of what is the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra Incorporated?
Thank you, Jack. So the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're now in our 101st season, $2.4 now $million budget, which is actually considered small of the 1,600 or so orchestras in the nation. Most of them are small. We hear about the New York Philharmonic and the LA Philharmonic and Chicago Symphony. Those are the big ones. But most of the orchestras in this nation are a little smaller like us, serving their communities and their regions, but the South Dakota Symphony is, of course, in service of the state. We are made up of a staff of 6 full-time people. Hello, South Dakota Symphony staff. Thank you for being here. 2 part-time people, 2 consultants, a staff of conductors, including our maestro, and we are governed by a 25-member board of directors. We also have an advisory board. We have a chorus. Some of you may sing in the chorus. We also have the South Dakota Symphony Youth Orchestra and the orchestra itself. So the orchestra is made up of 65 musicians. 9 of those musicians are full-time. That means full-time, salaried, with benefits. They live, work, and perform here in Sioux Falls and throughout the state. What's really unique about the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra is these 9 full-time players. Orchestras of our budget size throughout the nation don't have full-time musicians. But these 9 full-time players are baked in to the culture and the fabric and the budget and the community engagement and the education programs that they provide for the community. And this isn't a recent thing. The South Dakota Symphony has employed 9 full-time musicians for 40 years. The quartet, the Dakota String Quartet, was established in '78, I believe, and the quintet in '82. So for over 40 years, the South Dakota Symphony has committed to having these highly professional, very talented, highly skilled musicians living right here in Sioux Falls. And they're really the artistic heartbeat of the orchestra. So the way we're structured, it's kind of three-legged stool. We have the Board of Governors, of which Scott was the chair. Now David Fleechek is the chair. We have the administration, and then we have the orchestra. And David and I serve at the pleasure of the board.
how much of the income comes from, how much of it is earned income, that is ticket sales?
Yeah, so about 25% of our revenue comes from tickets. So please buy tickets. Please come to South Dakota Symphony Orchestra concerts and know that through your ticket sales, you're supporting 25% of the operation, but 65% comes from contributions. Those could be corporate sponsorships, they're individual donations, whether they're $10, $1,000, $10,000. We are actually structured, our revenue structure is very similar to orchestras throughout the nation. There's nothing unusual here. We also have an endowment, of which about 5% is contributed towards the budget. The endowment is only $3 million. And then we also get revenue from program ad sales, education programs, a few other miscellaneous things.
Good. So a little bit of the history of this orchestra. It was started by Augustana College. It was the original musicians were all students of Augustana, I believe. The name was later changed to the Augustana Town and Gown Symphony. Then it became the Sioux Falls Symphony before settling on its current name in 1977. And of course, in 1999, everything in the arts in this community took a giant step forward with the opening of the Washington Pavilion. And so the orchestra then moved into the orchestra moved into the pavilion. What is the relationship between the Washington Pavilion and the symphony?
Yeah, so we, of course, we've been there from the beginning of the Washington Pavilion. The South Dakota Symphony offices are in the Washington Pavilion, and right there on the fourth floor with the pavilion staff. We're sort of a legacy partner, is kind of how we like to refer to ourselves. We are one of many partners of the Washington Pavilion, but we've been there from the beginning. I would say it's an excellent relationship, and it's very much our success is their success is our success.
But independent of one another.
Yeah, independent of one another. South Dakota Symphony Orchestra rents office space. We rent the concert hall, rent rehearsal space. We also have such a good relationship with the Washington Pavilion that I would say we have a conversation about concert hall dates and rehearsal dates, and make sure that we're fitting into the Washington Pavilion's larger performing arts calendar in a way that makes sense for both organizations.
If I were to look at the balance sheet, would I see a lot of debt?
Zero debt. Yeah,
Zero debt. Okay.
We don't carry any debt, and we haven't for some time.
Okay.
For some time. Scott Lawrence.
So Scott, put this in some perspective for us, the fact that it's a healthy balance sheet, this incredible momentum. Have there been some rocky times? Did you ever wonder whether we would get to that 100th year? How bad did it get, and who deserves credit for this incredible success story?
Well, yes. Coming out of the difficult times, 2008, 2009, and into 2010, the South Dakota Symphony was in dire straits, no question. We had some issues in the office. I was not on the board at that time, but then was called back in 2011, and I said yes. And we had like 2 weeks of money left. The doors were going to shut. We had no cash. We had a line of credit that was maxed out at $500,000, and we were in trouble. Jennifer Boomgarden was our executive director. We put together a strategy of Save the Symphony, and as always, individuals like Dan Kirby step up and say, okay, I'm going to get a bunch of people together. We're going to have a lunch, and we're going to figure out how we can get some money to keep this thing going. So he did that, and he did that along with some other longtime community partners. And some of you are in this room. Some of you are president board members in this room. Some of you are past board members in this room, but it wouldn't have happened without the community coming together to get us through that rough time. David knows this. We cut salaries, right? We survived. And we got enough money to keep going. We had a 5-year plan to move this thing forward. We got rid of our debt, and that's a whole nother story. I could take the next 20 minutes talking to you about how that happened. But things like that only happen in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota because we come together as community. We come together as people that work together and know that we could not be without this artistic excellence. And I might add that people see the value. We recruit so many new people and professionals into Sioux Falls on a regular basis, and they always want to see the hall. They always want to say, do you have an orchestra? Do you have a youth orchestra? My son or my daughter plays the violin or the cello, and they come and they tour and they want to know about this. So it was imperative that we save this economic development tool. It was imperative that we save this quality of life tool and this artistic performance that we so desperately needed. So we came together, and by 2006, we had changed things around. We were out of debt, and we were back and running again and working hard to restore salaries for our maestro and our staff and for our musicians. And it's always been a little hand to mouth, I would tell you. As you know, our annual fund every year, and we look at how are we going to get there, and we finish one year and we hit our budget, and then we start the next year and start raising it again. So this gift from Bunt Rock doesn't give us money to sit on our laurels, okay? This is specific money to do things, to grow the orchestra and its footprint in the state of South Dakota, to be more renowned statewide. So we have specific goals. So it's never, you know, you can say, oh, you got $2 million. As I told the board the other morning, I sat in fleet checks on vacation of all times. I sat in for the board, and I just said, okay, we can't rest on our laurels. Annual fund's going, we got to get it done. And, you know, we've got a board member by the name of Dave Rosaboom that just said, here's how we're going to get it done. So, you know, we get to go after those kind of things. But it was, we were in dire straits. And
so from that, think about what has been preserved for this community as a community asset and the condition of this organization today and its exciting future as one of the boldest orchestras in America. It's really a great, amazing turnaround story. Over the last 100 years, there have been a lot of visionaries, a lot of leaders in this community that have built this orchestra over time and gotten us through the very difficult periods. But I think in my time in this community, and I think of myself as a community observer, in my time in this community, a real pivotal moment was when David Gier and Angela Gier joined this organization. That was in 2004. So David Gier is now in his 19th season.
20 next year.
20 next year. Gonna have a party for that. It is unusual for a music director, certainly of an orchestra this size, for a music director and family to move to that community, become part of that community. And that's what has happened with David and Angela Gier. David was the associate conductor of the New York Philharmonic. David, what was it that attracted you to, move halfway across the country out here on the barren prairie? What was your, and I want you to transition now to, what was your vision and how much of that is now being realized?
It's, I came because I wanted to live in a winter wonderland. Just look, there's my vision right there. Not, I gotta hate winter. Always have. So I guess it's kind of an interesting story. The New York Philharmonic played the first concert in that concert hall. And I have to say that the quality of the acoustic in that concert hall is because of the orchestra and nothing else. I mean, I was close friends with Mary Summervold, and she told me how she went to the mat over because the acoustics were the first thing that they wanted to cut when they're going over budget. And Kierkegaard and Associates was one of the best acousticians in the country, were the ones that were hired to do that. And I can tell you that all of my colleagues in the New York Philharmonic said, it's not fair that this concert hall is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and we have to play in a dump like Lincoln Center. And it's true. So they played. I was not on tour with them. My boss conducted the first concert in the hall, and but the symphony started a tradition of inviting a principal player of the New York Philharmonic as a soloist every year. So unbeknownst to me, so one day I was at work in New York, and Mark Nuccio, clarinetist, came up to me and he said, "Hey, David, I just got back from South Dakota. I played the Nielsen, which is probably the hardest clarinet concerto." And I sort of scoffed and said, "How'd that go?" And he said, "It went really well. They're looking for a conductor. Are you interested?" And I said, "Should I be?" And he said, "Yeah, you should be interested in this." So that's how it began. I mean, it wasn't a shoe in. I mean, I threw my hat into the ring, and I came out not knowing what to expect. But when I saw, first of all, those 9 core players, the commitment, the concert hall, the commitment of, at that point, 80 years of the building of this orchestra. I mean, the state had hardly been founded before there was an orchestra here. And I chalk it up to Norwegian Lutherans. I don't know. But the support of the orchestra, the importance of it in the community struck me. I was also struck, I can't tell you specifically why, but I also was able to intuit that this community, as you alluded, Scott, was special. Like, this is a can-do community. And the whole time I've been here, I've never gotten this from anyone. I've gotten this. It's frustratingly difficult. It's frustrating how long it takes. I mean, I've only been here for almost 20 years, but because you're so fiscally responsible. But we get there because I think that the moment in the interview with the search committee that was pivotal was when I told them that I was looking for somewhere where I could build something significant. Like, I was not interested in a music directorship where I was going to come in and just conduct concerts of music. Like, I want to build something. And they said, we want someone with that kind of artistic vision. And I've always had a sense that an orchestra should serve its unique community uniquely. I've seen way too many carbon copies of orchestras that just do the same kind of programming that are insensitive to the community in which it resides, the community that it serves. And so from the get-go, Lakota Music Project we didn't call it that, but we're South Dakota Symphony. We need to be making music with Native Americans. That's it. That's all there is to it. So, and that took 4 years to build before we played a single note, but that's part of that idea that we serve our community, which is our entire state. We serve all the pockets of our community, all the peoples of our community, because we're not just an entertainment option. We are a cultural institution, like a museum, like a park, like a library. These are things that don't pay for themselves. These are things that bring value to the community, like Scott was saying, like quality of life, enrichment of people's lives. Whether you ever darken our doors, you should be proud of the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra and what it does and what it represents for your community. Because it takes a lot to keep to have a symphony orchestra in any community, but to have one that's now built to this stature in this size of a community is extraordinary, and that's due to you, whether you're part of it or not. It's due to this community and the people that support it.
Some things that this orchestra is doing, aside from main stage classical concerts, this whole Lakota Music Project, which is distinctive. It really does. It gives us special relevancy in this state. The composition academies. it's astounding the difference it's making in primarily with Native young people, bringing them together in what it amounts to a week-long camp to teach those young Lakota students how to compose pieces. They are then performed at their home schools. They're then actually performed by our ensembles and by our orchestra. Our own youth orchestra, South Dakota Symphony Youth Orchestra. The Music as Medicine program, music as a way of promoting healing. Performances throughout the community, in our schools. And all that is in addition to just incredible classical music. Second half of the performance on Saturday night, Dvorak's Seventh Symphony, which is a wonderful piece. Something happened at the Washington Pavilion I've never seen. I've never seen it in any concert. When David Gier was done, and it got an instant standing ovation. It was such a powerful piece. When that piece when it was done, David Gier comes out and goes into the orchestra, goes all the way to the back of the orchestra, and it goes by featured player, from featured player to featured player, from section to section, with hugs and kisses and handshakes. I mean, it was a love fest, and it was a love fest that extended to the audience as well. This is indeed a community in love with its orchestra. I'll tell you that, and the connection between David as the music director and our musicians, and I know our musicians feel so appreciated by this community as well. What I'd like to finish up with here is ask the three of you to talk about the relevance of this organization, its adherence to its mission, and then talk a little bit about its future and how this Bunt Rock gift will allow us to go to another level. Just speak from your heart about why you're proud of this organization and its adherence to mission, its relevance to the community, and setting and achieving an ever higher standard. And we'll go in any order you want, but I'd like each of you to kind of talk about, why is this a treasure for our state, and why should it be supported, embraced?
I'll give a little artistic, because I think it goes more. We need to get to the Bunt Rock and the nuts and bolts of what he's talking about here. But coming out of with Scott, when we almost closed the doors, and we paid off the debt, Jennifer Boomgarden said, "David, you need to articulate a new artistic vision for this organization." And so we talked about it, we built it, and I think that's the thing that's caused more distinction of this from other orchestras, something that would have caused Alex Ross to recognize that the community was in love with the orchestra. What basically it boiled down to was that, yes, we're all about artistic excellence. Yes, we're all about main stage programming, but we raised all of those other programs that, every orchestra does education and community engagement, but most of it is it's an ancillary thing. Like, we're all about playing concerts on the stage. Yeah, we'll do a little education. We raised those other things to the same level of importance as our main stage programming without compromising our main stage programming. And that has gotten us into the community. It's gotten us building programs that are relevant educationally, not just to school, to the elementary schools, but all the way through the high schools and to universities. Like next month, we're going to have big engagement with USD and SDSU students through a specific program designed for them. These kinds of things are what address the relevance issue of what a symphony orchestra is and what it can be to its community.
So Jennifer, talk to us about how this $2 million gift is going to be invested.
As David talked about before, this was really a conversation with Dean Bunrock. He had only learned the South Dakota Symphony existed, right, over the summer. So, but he loves South Dakota. This is his home state. And he cares deeply for orchestras. So what he really saw in the South Dakota Symphony was an opportunity for us to have a bigger impact throughout the state. And in order to do that, we need to grow our revenue, right? Like he said, how do you do all that on such a small budget? Well, we work really hard. You can ask any of the staff sitting back here at the table. We work really hard, but we work so hard because we're mission driven, right? Our mission is to enrich people's lives through the power of orchestral music. That's what drives us. And that's what drove Dean Buntrock, to make this gift. So specifically, it is a gift to increase marketing, to bring more people into the concert hall. We still have concerts throughout the season through the end of April. Please come. Increased marketing, increased fundraising capacity. So that's really cultivating new donors. And we'll be doing that by adding a fundraising staff position. He is also investing in 2 major artistic projects that are highly unique to the South Dakota Symphony and unique to South Dakota. He's investing in Lakota Music Project, developing a new Lakota Music Project, which means new music for South Dakota Symphony musicians and Native American musicians to play together, which we will then take to several reservations in our state. He's also investing in the production of an opera by Douglas Moore called Giants in the Earth. That'll be in the 24-25 season. This is an opera that is based on the novel by Ollie Rolvag, Giants in the Earth, which was actually published 100 years ago. Rolvag went to Augustana Academy before he went to St. Olaf and wrote this book about the Norwegian immigration to our state. And then Douglas Moore wrote the Pulitzer Prize winning opera, won the Pulitzer in 1951. But the opera hasn't been recorded and it hasn't been heard. In fact, the music is in manuscript form, almost unreadable, right? You've seen it, which is probably one of the reasons why it hasn't been performed much. So what better orchestra to breathe life, back into this music, which celebrates the immigration to this state. So he's investing in that as well. Again, this symmetry, right, between being from South Dakota and loving symphony orchestras. So this project spoke specifically to him, but I have to say, he said, you need to make the most of this. So I'm going to give you some extra money to make sure that Giants in the Earth is publicized nationally, right? So it's not just, let's play it once and be done. It's like, what can we do to elevate the performance of this piece to help the South Dakota Symphony grow its revenue? That's always kind of where he came back to.
Scott Lawrence, put a bow on this, would you please? I mean, you've been associated with this organization longer than anybody on this stage, and you poured your heart and soul into this organization.
Well, as a musician, by education and a music teacher for 6 years before I somehow got into the business I'm in, I love music. Music is a part of my life every day, and I love the musicians. I love the music they play. And, I just want to make this plug. People have this thought that symphony is tie and gown, and maybe it's kind of an elite. It's not anymore. It's changing. There's T-shirts and blue jeans in that concert hall, and our 9 core musicians have fan clubs. And these fan clubs come to the concerts. It's fun to see. And Brandy Hartman, our marketing director, will tell you, our single ticket sales, we have subscribers in single ticket, they're going up. And we're seeing new audience come down. So I'm very happy about that. I would also say the Buntrock gift would have never happened, obviously, if Alex Ross hadn't written the article. But I was in that first meeting with them, and Rosemarie was enamored with Delta David. She kept telling Dean, come on, you want to give, just give. And Dean was taken with Jennifer's leadership and how buttoned down she was and how astute. Jennifer's fantastic. These 2 are awesome. And Dean was taken by her ability to verbalize what we needed to do. And then, we had another meeting when they flew out, but these two got it done. It wouldn't have happened without them. All I can say is it's uphill it's not downhill from here. It's steady as she goes. We have a budget to keep. We have a mission to keep. And tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. in the pavilion, we have a fundraising task force, second century task force fundraising. So we just stay at it. And, we just want to keep bringing this to the community in all the ways that it does. And we're very passionate about it. And I'm very proud to have had the opportunity to be a part of it. So
We have a few things in this state that are world class. This is one of them. And we now have this national validation. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to just join in not only thanking these three incredible leaders of this organization, but the musicians, the staff, those who have stood by this orchestra and have got it through the tough times, so that we can, we're about to undertake it. We're now into our second 100 years, and the future is bright. So please join me in thanking them as well as our three panelists.
Giants in the earth. Yeah.
Well, if I could sum up today, it's been a downtown Rotary with all the feels, and I was so glad to share it with you. We hope to see you next week, where our program is State of the Media. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Rotary is adjourned.